Good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday. We're learning the fifth and final Perek of Maaser Sheni. It's a very long Perek. Today's 15 mishnayos. We're going to try to be brief and concise, and let's get going here. Today's shiur sponsored the Nishmas Aaron Nachum Simcha Cohen Yeshua Mordechai Ben Shevsel Bracha Sabbath Shmuel Leib Yom Moshe Ben Yosef. From the chapter, the Perek starts off. Well, the first five mishnayos are not about Maaser Sheni, but relevant to the laws of revai. They're discussed over here because of the similarity to the laws of Maaser Sheni. Okay, so let's go. Mishnah Aleph. Kerem revai mitziyanin oso bekuzuzus. Bekuzuzus. Adama. Okay, whatever that word is. A fourth year vineyard is marked with clumps of earth which are placed next to the vineyard. Now let's remember that kerem revai is the fourth year of the vineyard. Just as we know that Orla, which is coming up in two Masechtas, you have Chala, Orla, and Bikurim, then Arsium. So you have Orla, which is on the fruits of the trees. You can't. The first 2 years of the tree's life, you cannot eat anything from it, and then the next year is the first 3 years are called Orla, and the fourth year is revai. Sorry, we're gonna go do more of that. More about that in Orla coming up in next week. But by a vineyard, it's the same 3 years, but you have the fourth year is called kerem revai. It's a special revai for the fourth year, and there the the fourth year is taken to Yerushalayim, if I'm understanding this correctly. Anyway, so let's go. So a fourth year vineyard is marked with clumps of earth, which are placed next to the vineyard. V'shel orla becharsis. An orchard of orla is marked with clay, the type of clay from which earthenware vessels are made. V'shel kvaros b'sid u mimcha b'shofech. And graves are marked with lime, which is mixed with water and poured over the graves. Obviously, graves were marked so that the Kohanim and Nazirim do not become tummy from them. Said, when were these words said? That revai and all the trees must be marked. B'shvius, during the shemitah year, when the produce of Eretz Yisrael is ownerless and anyone's allowed to enter and into someone else's field and takes some of the fruits that are growing there to eat. But in the other years where it's forbidden to take someone else's fruits without permission, there's no obligation to mark revai and or the trees, because we're not responsible for protecting a thief from the consequences of his crime. But Sinuim and the modest ones, the pious people who wish to prevent people from sinning, did not rely on just marking the revai. Rather, manichin as hamaos, they would set aside coins and say, "Kol hanukat mizet yehemachulal amos ha'elu." Any revai that is picked from this orchard shall be redeemed unto these coins. In this way, even any fruits taken for the orchard were redeemed and thus permitted to eat. So they went so far to say that even if a ganav, quote unquote, comes into my field, I'm going to give it to him, and I want him to be to not have a problem with all of these yisurim. So here's a couple of coins you can be poda on, and you're not chayv gazeli, not chayv on any of these other yisurim. It's a very high midah. Not everyone's going to hold like that. The people just come in to their homes or to their fields without permission. Kerem of Mishnah Beis, Kerem revai olel Yerushalayim. The produce of a fourth year vineyard will be brought up to Yerushalayim and not be redeemed. Halach yom echad l'chol tzad. If it grew within 1 day's travel of Yerushalayim in any direction, then the Chacham made this decree so that the markets of Yerushalayim would be well supplied with fruit. Since those traveling to Yerushalayim within a day's journey would bring their own food to eat, they would not need to buy any in Yerushalayim, and there would be more food there for everyone else. However, the Chacham did not want to put people to the trouble of bringing fruit to Yerushalayim if it took more than a day's travel to reach the city. This decree applied to all types of fruit trees, not just to vineyards. What are the boundaries of this area? Eilas ben Hadarim, Eilat in the south, the Akrabas ben Hatzav, and Akrabas from the north, Lo ben Hamaruf, Lo from the west, the Hayardim ben Hamizrach, and the Jordan River from the east. Any places within these 4 points is within the day's travel of Yerushalayim, and the produce growing there had to be brought to Yerushalayim. It's funny that Eilat is, unless you talk about different Eilat, I don't know if it's referring to. Here's a footnote. There's a footnote here that's not the same as the present day Eilat, which is more than a day's travel from Yerushalayim. It was not part of Eretz Yisrael in biblical or Mishnayos times. He doesn't say where in Eretz Yisrael this Eilat was, but it wasn't the one that's commonly known today. Okay. When fruit became plentiful in the markets of Yerushalayim, it was no longer necessary for revai to be brought to the city to ensure a large supply of fruit. His nifter samach l'choma, and then the Chachamim canceled the original decree and decreed that revived fruit may be redeemed even close to or right outside the walls of Yerushalayim. Tanai Haya Hadavar, however, there was a condition attached to a new decree, namely, that whenever the Chachamim of later generation would want to restore the original practice, the law should be returned to what it was beforehand. The Chachamim who canceled the original decree were concerned that at some time in the future there might again be a shortage of fruit in the markets of Yerushalayim, and therefore they made a condition that the new decree should not be considered permanent, and that it could be withdrawn whenever the need arose. Very smart thinking. Rabbi Yossi says the decree was not canceled at a time when there was a plentiful supply in Yerushalayim of fruit. Rather, it was after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed that the Chachamim canceled that decree and added this condition. And this condition was that when the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, the law will return to what it was before, when fruit within a day's travel of Yerushalayim had to be brought there. According to Rabbi Yossi, the decree will not be reinstated by a later court. Rather, it will automatically return when the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, and it will again be appropriate to have Yerushalayim's market full of fruit. Men can Yiratzon. And it'll be in a couple of days. Kerem, Mishnah Gimel, Kerem revai, the produce of the 4th year of a vineyard. Beishamai says, in Chomesh is not subject to the law of a 5th, meaning to add on a 5th when he redeems his produce, as we discussed in previous parakim. And is not subject to the law of removal in the 4th and 7th year of the shemitah cycle, as he mentioned also earlier. Because the Torah mentions these halachos only in connection to Maaser Sheni and not to revai. The Beis Hillel says Yeshlo, no, revai is subject to both the laws of Chomesh and the law of Beer, just like Maaser Sheni, because the law of revai is learned out from the laws of Maaser Sheni. Beis Shammai says Yeshlo Perek, Yeshlo Olilus, the fruit of a 4th year vineyard is subject to the laws of Perek and olivos, which are 2 kinds of grapes that must be left for the poor to take, similar to leket, shecha, and peah for grain. You have Perek and olivos for the vineyards. Ve'aniyim podin asman, and the poor people who take the Perek or the olalus from the revai trees must redeem them for themselves and bring the money to Yerushalayim if they choose not to bring the grapes. Beis Hillel says, Kulo Lagas, all of the revai grapes, including the Perek and olalus, goes to the wine press of the owner. The poor do not have any right to that. Mishnah Dalet, Ketzad Podanet revai. How do we redeem the fourth year produce of a tree? Maniach es hasal al pishlosha. The owner puts down a basket of revai to have its value assessed by 3 experts. Whatever price they set for this basket is then used for the rest of the revai fruit. The Omer, Kama Adam Rotzel Liftos Lobasela. He then says to the 3 experts, how many baskets of such fruit would a person be willing to buy for a seller while the fruits are still attached to the tree? Amanas, the Hotzi, with the understanding that he will pay from his own pocket the expenses of taking care of the fruit until they are picked. The owner then puts down the coins that are equal to the amount of produce that he wants to redeem, and says, "Ko hanokat mizeh nechul alamos elu v'chach salim b'sel." Any fruit that is picked from this tree is hereby redeemed onto these coins at the rate of such and such a number of baskets for a seller. This is the value. Okay, Mishnah Hey. Ubeshviyas. However, if someone redeems revived produce that grew during the shemitah year, Hodeyu b'shavyav. He redeems it for its full value and not according to the method described in the previous Mishnah. Haya hakol mufkar. And if all the revai was ownerless, that the owner declared all the trees to be ownerless, and then someone acquired them and wished to redeem the fruit, ein lo ela schar l'kita. He does not have right to any reduction in the redemption price except for the cost of picking the fruit. The other work, however, is not done by him, so there's no reason to allow him any reduction for it. Hapoda net the revai shelo mosif alav chamishiso. Someone who redeems the produce of his own 4th year tree must add a 5th to it. Whether it was always his, or whether it was given to him as a gift, doesn't matter. He adds on a revai. Okay, now we're going back to Maaser. We're going to talk about biur Maaser and vidui Maaser. If you know the psukim in Kisavo talk about biur Maaser in the first aliyah. I have a recitation, that's why I know. That's the second aliyah. Well, the first aliyah is about bringing bikurim, and the second aliyah in Kisavo is about biur Maaser. So let's go. Mishnah Vav. Erev Yantar Rishon Shel Pesach Shel Revius V'Shel Shvius Haya Biur. That on Erev Pesach of the 4th and 7th years of the shemitah cycle, the removal of Maaser was performed. That someone who had Maaser in his possession must remove them before Pesach of the 4th and 7th year. On the 4th year, he removes the Maaser from the remaining from the first 3 years of the shemitah cycle, and the 7th year, he removes it from years 4, 5, and 6. How is the biur performed? Noticed in Chumas Maaser the Baalim. They would give the Chuma and Chumas Maaser to the owners, the Kohanim. Maaser Rishon the Baalav, and Maaser Rishon to its owners. Maaser Sheni the Baalav, and Maaser Sheni to its owners, meaning Maaser Ani, the Baalav, my mistake, and Maaser Ani to its owners, to the poor. Maaser Sheni the Bikurim, Misparim, B'chol Makom. However, Maaser Sheni and Bikurim must be removed from every place, meaning that they must be destroyed. If there's not enough time to take Maaser Sheni and Bikurim to Yerushalayim and eat them there before the beer deadline, then one has to destroy them. Rabbi Shimon says that Bikurim Nitanin the Kohanim B'Tshuma, Bikurim are not destroyed, rather they are given to the Kohanim just like Truma is. Hatavshil, if someone has a cooked food that contains some Maaser Sheni, doesn't have enough time to take it up to Yerushalayim and eat it there before the beer deadline. Beishamai said, Sarich Levar, he must destroy it because it contains Maaser Sheni, which must be destroyed. Beis Hillel says, Harehu K'mevuvar, review the Maaser Sheni as though it has already been removed, since Maaser Sheni cannot easily be seen in the cooked food. There is no need to destroy it. Rather, one may keep the cooked food and eat it in Yerushalayim even after the beer deadline. Obviously, if it's Erev Pesach, you have to be careful about chametz on Erev Pesach. So if it's definitely chametz, that has to be burnt. Also, the question is whether they have to be burned chametz of chulin in its own fire versus chametz the beer maestros in a different fire. Different question, different time. Mishnah Zayin. Someone has produce of Maaser Sheni nowadays when the Beis Hamikdash is not standing. Maaser Sheni may not be eaten even in Yerushalayim. The time that beer arrived, Beishamai said, you must transfer kedusha from the produce to money, meaning the money to Yerushalayim and destroy it there. Beis Hillel says, whether the Maaser Sheni is money or whether it is the original produce, it has no permissible use nowadays, and therefore it must be destroyed. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mishnah Ches, Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Rishona, Hayu Shochin, Eitzel Bali Batim, Shemedinas. Originally, as the deadline for beer approached, the Chachamim would send the following message to all the Balabatim in the provinces outside Yerushalayim. Maharuv v'yiskinu es perusechen ad shelo tagia shasa beer. Hurry and prepare your produce before the time for beer arrives, and get done what has to get done. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva Limed shekol ha'perush shelo ba'u la'onas ha'maises b'turim min beer. Until Rabbi Akiva came along and taught that any produce that has not reached the Maaser stage, that has not been that's processing has not been completed, is exempt from beer. It's part from beer, because the law of beer does not apply to produce that's not yet fully processed. Therefore, someone who has unprocessed produce does not have to do anything with it before the beer deadline. Misha Hayib Mishnah Tess. Misha Hayib Peros Rechokim Imanu. If someone's produce is far away from him and he cannot deliver the maestros to the proper recipients before the deadline, Sarich Likros Lehem Shem. He must name the recipients by name, the people, the Kohen, Levi, Ani, to whom he wants to give the maestros, and transfer ownership of the maestros to them. He therefore fulfills the obligation of beer, even though the recipient does not yet have the maestros in his hand. Maaser Rabbi Gamliel as a canon. There was a maaser that took place with Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim, namely Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, and Elazar ben Azariah. Shahayu Barim B'Sfina. They were traveling on a ship where Rabbi Gamliel realized that the deadline for beer was approaching and he had not yet fulfilled his maaser obligations. Rabbi Gamliel said, Isur Shani Asli Ligmar Nasam Yeshua. The 10th of my produce that I will measure out as Maaser Sheni is hereby given to Yeshua, who is a Levi. Umekomo muskalo, and its place, where the Maaser Sheni currently, you know, is stored, is rented to him, so he can acquire the Maaser by paying for the ground beneath it. Iser acher shani no an asid lamud nasan lakiva ben Yosef. And another tenth of my produce that I will measure out as my sa'ani, Yeshiva given to Akiva ben Yosef, who's a treasurer of the charity for the poor. Yiska Bolaniyam, so that he will acquire it on behalf of the poor people. Makomo Muskalo. And the Maaser Ani's place is rented to him as well, so he can acquire the Maaser Ani by paying for the ground beneath it. In this way, Galil gave his Maaser Rishon and Maaser Ani to the appropriate recipients who were with him on the boat, and then they were required to handle it when they got back. Amar Yeshua said to him, Isur Shani Asid Lamu Nasan Laza Ben Azariah. The tenth of my Maaser Rishon that I will measure out as Tumas Maaser, it's hereby given to Laza Ben Azariah, who was a Kohen. And the Tumas Maaser place is rented to him so that he can acquire the Tumas Maaser paying for the ground beneath it. After stating to whom they would give their Maasers to, they received the rent payment from each other. So Galil received rent from Yeshua for the place of the Maaser Rishon, another payment from Akiva for the place of the Maaser Ani, and Yeshua received payment from Elazar ben Azariah for the place of the Tumas Maaser, and they solved everything on the boat, and everything was a-okay. Okay. Now, for the next few mishnayos, to the end of the Masechta, we're going to talk about vidui Maaser. Vidui Maaser, again, comes from the second Aliyah in Devarim. We have a Chumash handy, you can look at it over there. I'm not going to go through the psukim right now. But Mishnah Yud, B'menach b'yontav acharon hayu misvad. On the afternoon of the last day of the Yontav Pesach, the vidui will be recited. What we call the time of the Chag. Ketzir haya vidui. What is the meaning of this vidui? To which the Maasers and to which the laws of Maaser does it refer? To which Maasers and which laws of Maaser does it refer? The quote unquote, the phrase, holy things, was in the first line of that aliyah. I have removed the holy things from the house. Refers to Maaser Sheni and not the revai. These must be removed from the house either by being taken to Yerushalayim and eaten there, or if that's not possible, destroyed in accordance with the law of beer. The Levi, Maaser Levi. The next words, I have given it to the Levi, refers to Maaser Rishon. Must have given to Levi. Vegam the Sativ, Zu Truma Maaser. And the words I have also given it indicate that this is for Truma and Trumas Maaser, which must be given to a Kohen. Lager la yasam ilamana. And the next few words, Zeh Maaser Ani haleket v'shecha v'apeya. The next words of to the convert, to the orphan, and to the widow refer to Maaser Ani, Maaser Leket, and to refer to Maaser Ani, the Leket, Shecha, and Peya, which are given to the poor. Aval pi she'ena me'akvin as vidui, Leket, Shecha, and Peya are included in the vidui, even though they do not prevent the vidui from being recited. Menabayis zu chala. And the words from the house, which is also part of that pasuk, right? I refers to challah, which is a portion of dough that must be given to a Kohen, which is coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow is Time Challah. Mishnah Yud Aleph, Kechometz L'Schar She'er Svisani, continuing with the psukim, that the phrase, according to your entire commandment that you have commanded me, that refers to the chiyuv to separate maasers in the proper order, meaning bikurim is first, then truma, then Maaser Rishon, Maaser Sheni, and Maaser Rani on the following on the alternating years. Therefore, if one follow this order, he recites the he recites the vidui. Ha im hektim Maaser Sheni the Rishon and the Yachlis Vadas. But if you reverse the order, for example, that you separate Maaser Sheni before Maaser Rishon, he may not recite this vidui. Lo avarti mitzvah sechet. The next phrase, that I have not transgressed any of your commandments, means lo hifrashti min al she'elamina. I did not separate maaser from one species of produce for a different species of produce. For example, you took wheat for barley or barley for wheat. Lo min atalish ala mechubar, not from produce that is detached from the ground for produce that is still connected to the ground. And not from the attached produce to the detached produce. Not from the new crop to the old crop. And not from the old crop onto the new crop. He did everything by the book, one category for that category. And the final verse, and I did not forget, means I did not forget to bless you and to mention your name on it, meaning that I did not forget to recite the brachos that must be said before separating maasros and redeeming Maaser Sheni. Mishnah Yud Beis. Darshani, now the next pasuk, Lo achalti v'ani mimenu. I did not eat from it when I was an onen. That the owner, he avoided eating Maaser Sheni when he was an onen, which is aser. Ha im achlu be'anina in a yachlis. But if he did eat it when he was an onen, he may not recite the vidui. So an onen again is someone who's karov. Well, one of the Zion Krovim is, they were nifter, but they were not buried yet. So during that short window of time, it's called aninus, and therefore therefore one of the things that only is not allowed to do, not allowed to eat maasros, or separate maasros, both of them. And continuing with the pasuk, and I did not remove to beer in a state of tuma. He was not ma'ifresh Maaser Sheni for the sake of beer when he was tamei, and therefore caused it to become tamei. In that case, he may recite the vidui ha im hefrisha b'tuma and a yachol his fathers. If he did separate it when he was in a state of tuma, thereby making it tamei, he may not recite the vidui. When I did not give of it for the needs of the dead. Meaning, I did not use money, Maaser Sheni, to buy a coffin or shrouds for a dead person. And I did not give Maaser Sheni to other onanim who are forbidden to eat it. I listened to the voice of Hashem, my God, which means evasive. The base of Chira means I brought it to the base of Mikdash. I have acted according to everything that you have commanded me. Samachti v'samachti bo means that I rejoiced and brought joy to others with it. Meaning that I ate my Maaser Sheni in a state of simcha, and I brought joy to others by sharing it with them. Mishnah Gimel, the last pasuk, Ashkifa b'mon koshechem hashemayim. Ends up with a prayer. Gaze down from your holy place from the heavens and bless your nation. This is what the Kohanim say when they finish Birkas Kohanim, by the way. Asinu mashikazarta lenu, we have fulfilled what you have decreed upon us. Af ata ase mashir tachtanu. So you too fulfill what you promised us. Which hashkifa man koshach Shemaim varich es amcha es Yisrael. To gaze down from your holy place in the heavens and bless your nation, Israel. Beban Vanos, bless us with sons and daughters, Ves Hadama, Ashenasat Alanu, but Bitala Mater, Bivlados Behema. And the land that you have given us, that is to bless us with dew and rain, and with the offspring of animals. Kasher Nishbat Avosenu, Eretz Vaskalav with the Vash, that's part of the Pasuk. Kidei Shetiten Tam Paris, as you swore to our forefathers, a land flowing with milk and honey, bless us that you will put taste into the produce. Mr. Yadalit, two more to go. Hang in there. Mikan Anu based on here. I mean the last verse of the vidui that regarding the land that you have given us. The Chachamim said, Yisrael umamzerim Isvadim, the Yisraelim and Mamzerim, they may said to vidui, avalo gerim, lo vadim shechvarim. But converts and freed slaves may not recite it. She'ein lahem chelik ba'aretz, because they do not have a share in the land of Israel, and therefore they cannot say the land that you have given us. Interesting. Rabbi Meir Omer Rebbe says, Af lo kohanim lo levim, kohanim and levim, they also cannot recite the vidui. Shlo not to chelik ba'aretz, because they did not take a share in the land of Israel. Therefore, they cannot say the land that you have given us. Yossi says, Yesh lechem arim migrash. The Kohanim Levim have the open cities, which is enough for them to be able to recite the vidui. Finally, the last Mishnah of this Masechta talks about various decrees of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Yochanan Kohen Gadol Havir Hodayos Maaser. Yochanan Kohen Gadol brought an end to the recitation of vidui Maaser. Afu batel min esam orim. He also abolished the wakers in the practice of the Levim in the Beis Hamikdash to recite the verse, awake, why do you sleep, Hashem? It's from the Hillim Mem Dalet. That's Hanokfim. 1 second here. Right. It says here that the Levim would stand on the platform in the Beis Hamikdash each day and cry out the pasuk, awake, why do you sleep, Hashem? You're not going to put an end to this practice because there's no such thing as God being asleep. The verse refers to times of Gullus when God seems to ignore our suffering and appears as if he's quote unquote sleeping, but it was not proper for the Levim to recite this verse in the times of Yochanan when the temple was still standing. Okay, Ves Hanokfim and the strikers, the practice in the Beis Hamikdash to make a cut in an offering's head right before it was slaughtered. So he abolished all those practices. Until this days, the hammer would bang in Yerushalayim during Chol Hamoed, and blacksmiths would work on Chol Hamoed, and he stopped them from doing so. And in his days, it was not necessary for anyone to ask whether Maaser had been separated from the Mai, because he decreed that Maaser always must be separated from such produce. Hajj Alach Maaser Sheni, and we'll see you tomorrow as we begin Maseches Chala. Kol Tov, have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us.